Hi, this is Rudy coming at you live from Palm Beach in Florida, sunny Palm Beach. And today I have a very special guest who I'm going to introduce in just a minute. It is Wednesday, it is August the 13th, and I have with me Aurora Davidson, who is the CEO of Amerigo. Welcome, Aurora. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rudy. Great to be here.
All right, so just by way of a quick sort of disclaimer stroke introduction, I just want to say whether Amerigo Resources is a good investment for you as an investor obviously depends on your personal risk tolerance, your investment goals, the market outlook as it relates specifically to copper and a variety of other factors we wouldn't necessarily know. Amerigo, the company, has consistently generated positive free cash flow to equity, which is a key metric for assessing the company's ability to return capital to shareholders or reinvest in operations. On that very happy note and positive note, Aurora, what I'd like you to do is take a couple of minutes and just introduce Aurora to our audience.
Thank you, Rudy. It's great to be here. My name is Aurora Davidson. I am the CEO of Amerigo Resources, and I'll walk you a little bit in a little while about what Amerigo is all about. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been with Amerigo since 2003, so I'm a bit of an anomaly in the fact that my longevity with the company is quite long, which presents a significant strength in my opinion. I joined the company as CFO. I'm a CPA, chartered private accountant. I also have a degree in business administration. I would say my interest in finance stems from my interest in business and not the other way around. So I'm first a business person and a generalist, and then I specialized in finance. So I've been with Amerigo since 2003, essentially 6 months after Amerigo bought a phenomenal asset, which is the undercore of our company, and we're going to be talking about that, an asset called MVC, which is located in Chile. So I know the company in and out. We're also a very different type of company in how we work. Our focus is on our operation, not on the grandiosity of the corporate world. So we have a very small corporate team of 4 people in Canada, which deals with the public side of the company. We've always been a public company, always been listed on the TSX, which is a senior Canadian board. But other than that, those 4 people, we have 200 employees that do the real work in Chile. So our focus essentially is in ensuring that this asset works like clockwork and that it fulfills one of the mandates for which it was founded, which was to return capital to its shareholders. So in a nutshell, Rudy, there's not a lot to talk about me. Most of my professional life has been with Amerigo, for good or for bad, I think for good. And having said that, I moved to the role of CEO 5 years ago. I was honored to have that opportunity, and it's a phenomenal challenge, and also it has been a very rewarding 5 years in which we've basically stabilized the company operationally and rolled out a capital return strategy, which is, in my opinion, one of the significant distinguishing factors about Amerigo, particularly in the copper sector.
Excellent. So thanks for that introduction. The Aurora briefly mentioned Amerigo trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange. The ticker symbol is ARG. And you can also invest in Amerigo Resources over the counter in ARREF. So thanks for that personal intro. How about the company? So maybe just explain to our viewers in a couple of minutes or so, what exactly is it that Amerigo Resources does?
I could do it in a sentence. We're a copper factory. We are a copper factory. We are not a copper miner. And we're the only company in the world that can use that description. What we do is we produce copper. We produce copper in the form of a copper concentrate by processing the tailings from the world's largest underground copper mine. Don't get scared. I'm not going to be technical about any of this. Tailings is essentially the waste material that comes out of the mining process. Every mine in the world produces tailings, and all the tailings have a different grades of residual metal in those tailings, which is what we recover. The mining process is not a perfect process. There's always going to be some metal left behind, and there's that's where Amerigo distinguishes itself in the fact that an opportunity was assessed of recovering this residual amount of copper from the tailings of a significant asset. As I said, the world's largest underground copper mine. So the core of our business is essentially focusing on processing those tailings, which have already been processed in the mining process and concentrated. The mine already produces the concentrate. And then it has that residual element called the tailings. We process it again and we recover additional copper concentrate. We don't do it in a small scale. We're working with huge volumes. You can just imagine the amount of material that is coming from that significant asset, which is called El Teniente. And our production profile is also quite strong. We produce, to use round numbers, 65 million pounds of copper a year. That is equivalent of what a mid-sized copper mine produces. So end result, the same production as a mid-sized mine without the mine, without a lot of that mining process that gets you to that production result.
Awesome. So, just as a sort of a quick segue into the discussion, which is going to be mostly Q&A, I hope that's okay, Aurora. Amerigo is generating consistent free cash flow, as I mentioned earlier, supported by operational efficiency and favorable copper prices. Obviously, that varies from time to time. And this strengthens Amerigo's ability to fund dividends, share buybacks, and debt reduction, which we are going to talk about in just a little bit. Before we kind of get into the general Q&A, what I want to do is just touch on the tragic event that happened July 31st, if I'm correct on that date timeline, where there was some seismic activity. And then maybe you can kind of help us to understand what happened there. And in addition to that, today's announcement, which I received, that said that you had restarted. So maybe could you give us a bit of an overview of the unfortunate event that happened, which also impacted Amerigo, but also unfortunately resulted in the loss of life for some of the mining personnel which work for Codelco. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So let me just give you a little bit of background, Rudy, if that's okay.
Sure.
The El Teniente mine is one of several mines, 6 mines owned by a company called Codelco. Codelco stands for National Copper Company of Chile. So it is a state-owned company that produces copper. In fact, it is the world's largest copper producer. The significance of Codelco in the copper world is amazing. It is the foremost producer. It is a company that is working with the most long-lived assets, copper assets in the world. El Teniente has been operating consistently since the early 1900s. And has a projected life of mine of another 70 years ahead of it. So it is one of those, it is a significant copper asset. And Codelco is the most serious, technologically advanced, and technologically innovative copper company in the world. What happened on July 31st was in this significantly big underground copper mine, there was a seismic event. It caused a collapse of rock, and unfortunately, there were 6 workers killed in that incident. This is the most significant safety incident that Codelco has had in 35 years. The prior one was in 1990, a similar type of incident, and it also resulted in the loss of life of 6 workers. We're obviously not minimizing that tragedy. It is a significant tragedy that resulted in 3 days of national mourning for Chile. It hit us all in the industry very hard. But we also have to acknowledge that the mining industry is perhaps one of the most safe industries in the world with very low incidence factors. The gravity factor in this case is significant because no one wants to issue a press release saying 6 people lost their lives in the course of doing their work.
Mm.
But I would say working in the El Teniente mine, while inherently risky, is as risk-free as possible for a mining operation. I've been there. I've visited the underground operations, and just the amount of preparedness that one has to go down. You have to, after a certain age, you cannot be allowed in the premises. You have to have a safe, a health record that allows you to do that.
Mm.
We had several people in our tour that were politely told, we'll entertain you in a different way up here, but you cannot go underground. And the safety measures are just amazing. I mean, you go with all your respirator equipment, protective gear. You are not allowed to move a meter away from where they tell you to be. So safety-wise, I don't think there are mines that are safer than Codelco's mines, but this just proves that we're not
Mm.
immune to the
Sure.
risks of life itself. Having said that, the incident occurred in the evening of July the 31st. Immediately, this happens in Chile by regulation. All mining operations were suspended. That would happen there. That would happen in our own operation until further assessment by the authorities is able to take place, and the operations have gradually resumed. They started working again on the night of last Saturday, and they have been resuming in what's called a safe restart plan. We are receiving fresh tailings again, and which is good news for us. But this was an incident that of extreme significance to the
Mm.
mining industry, I would say worldwide, and to every one of us who is closely associated with Chile.
Well, our deepest sympathy to the people who were impacted directly and even indirectly by this event. It was awful news to receive, and best and strengths to the local community as well. Just to sort of on a related topic, the your guidance is, as you said, rounded to about 60 million pounds per year. Would
65.
yeah, would this
Six,
be
yeah.
okay? Thanks for the correction. Would this impact the guidance significantly?
We are assessing that, and we didn't provide a revised guidance yet because it will depend on what occurs in the ramp up of operations in the next days. You do not mining is a gradual process. When you shut down, you restart, you do it gradually, and we have to assess what will be happening. I don't expect any significant guidance revision, but we will provide that as soon as hard numbers and verifiable numbers that we feel comfortable with are available to us.
Okay. So, as I said at the beginning, congrats on on the excellent quarter in Q2. Great results. I did look back sort of historically and looked at 2024, which was a banner year for Amerigo Resources, and obviously significantly greater and better than the year prior, which was 2023. And
Mhm.
then when I look at the quarterly results where we are now, there are a couple of items you could possibly just walk us through sort of collectively. But if we look at the Q2 revenue, it's slightly down, the net income slightly down, for instance, compared to Q2 of 2024. So that sort of slight decrease in revenue or income or EBITDA, is it related to the commodity price or other macro factors, or what is it related to, or how did that come about?
Um, the variance between Q2 2024 and Q2 2025 can basically be attributed to what we call settlement adjustments. And let me just walk you through how that works. When we sell our copper concentrate, we sell it priced on what's called the M plus 3 metric. The First of all, we sell it based on LME prices, London Metal Exchange prices. So if you or anyone goes into your browser and clicks in copper price, you will get the COMEX price.
Mm,
The COMEX price is essentially not the market where miners sell their contracts on a long-term basis. You should look for the LME, London Metal Exchange price. But anyways, when we sell our copper, we sell it on the price that will be the average price 3 months following our delivery or production of that copper. So let's say a January production will be provisionally priced at the January price, but we will settle it with a final cash transfer based on what the average price for the month of April is, because you have to count 3 months, February, March, April. So April comes, you have your average price on the LME market for that month, and that's where you settle it at. It doesn't mean that you get paid in April, you get paid on a provisional basis beforehand, but then you settle at that. So in Q2 2024, we had a substantial amount of those settlement adjustments because of the change in prices
okay.
from January, February, and March 2024 to the realized final prices of April, May, and June.
Mm,
We didn't have that much of a significance or a variance in this quarter, and I think we mentioned that in our news release, saying I would have to check what the amounts are. But anyways, in our news release, we disclose that right at the front. One of the variables for the reduction in net income, because we had comparable production metrics, is the fact that we had lower settlement adjustments. So when you see substantial changes in copper price, either up or down from one quarter to the next, there will be that catch up of the provisional to the final price. It occurs both ways.
sure.
Sometimes when the copper price goes up, it does go up. In this year, what we have seen, quite interestingly, is that even if there has been intra-quarter changes in the LME copper price, the average for the month, and then also our mark-to-market adjustments, which we have to book at each quarter end to account for the progression that we are seeing in that M+3 curve, was the same. So we had 442 copper price in both quarters, even if there were substantial changes going, for example, from January to June, quarter-wise, they were eliminated within the quarter. So that was one of the reasons why we had that variance. It's always difficult to do the comparison quarter on quarter.
Mm,
Because of two reasons. One of them is what happens with the commodity price on the short term with those settlement adjustments, and also we may have varying levels of production depending on when we do our annual maintenance shutdown. We shut our plant down at the same time the El Teniente mine shuts down for a period of 8 to 10 days per year to do a thorough maintenance overhaul of everything that needs to be done without any power being on, etc. This year we did it in Q1 of 2025. Last year we did it in Q2 of 2024. So there's always going to be that adjustment between one quarter or the next in terms of those production. So I always tell people, don't take the last quarter and multiply it by 4. It's easier to look at the last year and
sure.
assess which circumstances may have changed from one full year to what we're seeing so far this year.
Excellent. So Amerigo is consistently profitable, strong revenue growth driven by higher copper production and prices. The profitability is sensitive to copper price fluctuations and production levels, but the company's low-cost tailings processing model helps to maintain margins. I hope that's a fair comment.
Yes, it is, and we always, if you ask anyone working for our operation in Chile, what do we produce? They'll tell you we produce two things: not copper and moly, copper and margin. We are
Okay.
as interested in producing financial margin as we're interested in producing copper. We're
Yeah.
not. I'm not chasing the production headlines. If
Mm,
that production headline will not yield us a number because we, are not doing it economically, it doesn't mean anything.
All right. Okay, so talking about finances a little bit, can you please provide us with an update on your debt? I know you plan to eliminate your remaining debt by year end. So where are you at, and what does that look like, and what
Yes.
flexibility will that offer you?
Uh, just give me a minute to tell you where that debt came from.
Sure.
We took a $100 million loan in two different tranches some years ago to expand our operation to the levels of production that we currently have. Without diluting shareholders, we could have done a significant equity raise and then basically dilute our patient shareholders, or take on the risk of securing the debt and managing the debt for a number of years. And we did the second. So out of that $100 million of debt, we're down essentially to 7.5 million. We made a semi-annual debt repayment in June the 30th. Scheduled wise, we would pay 4 million in December, and then we would have 3.5 million to pay in June 2026. I don't want to do that. I want to basically, because we know that we're going to have the capacity to do that, just repay, get that debt and its obligations out of the books, be debt free for the first time in 10 years, which will be a reason for celebration. And what that will do, it essentially will liberate around $9 million of cash flow for us on an annual basis, comprised of the principal repayments and the associated finance expense.
Okay, excellent. I was looking at the performance. This is not a question, by the way. It's just a comment, but I was looking at the performance over the past 3 years, 124% positive, 5-year return, 445% positive. I usually tell my audience that I want to strive for at least 15% on an annualized compounded basis, because that way I can
Mhm.
double every 5 years. And Amerigo grow returned 445% over the past 5 years. So since I have you, live in front of everyone, you can say you're going to do it again, right? So don't worry, it's not a question. It's just tongue in cheek. Um, the agreement that you currently have in place with Codelco uh, is, if I understand it correctly, a 12-year agreement, or there's 12 years remaining on the agreement, either or. So maybe give us a little bit of an update on that in terms of helping us understand exactly what that means.
Yes. This agreement is the cornerstone of our business. It essentially gives us the rights to process tailings from El Teniente, both the fresh tailings from the daily production of the mine, and also historic tailings that El Teniente produced in past decades and are deposited in premises owned by Codelco that are adjacent to our plant. So that agreement is our equivalent of life of mine. Given that we don't have a mine, we treat it as such. It is our most significant asset. We entered into that, well, when a little bit of history before, when Amerigo bought the MVC operation in 2003, that agreement had a termination date of 2021. So we knew that at least we had 18 years ahead of us to work with the tailings and process those tailings and generate value out of that. In 2018, no, 2000, earlier than that, 2018, I think is when we signed it. Anyways, we approached El Teniente with a request to extend that contract, and also with a request to have the rights, which we didn't have at the time, to process one of the historic tailings deposits that we have, which is the one that we're working with concurrently with the fresh tailings. And in doing so, that agreement was extended from the termination date of 2021 to 2037. So essentially 16 more years of contract term. We expect that the same will occur in the future. This relationship that our operating asset MVC has had with El Teniente goes back to 1992. So even if we bought it in 2003, it already had more than a decade of business experience and contractual relationship before us. So it is a long-term relation. It is fundamental to us, but I also think it's important for El Teniente to have a partner that process those tailings. And in the way in which we have the agreement, not the tailing supply agreement, but an ancillary agreement, which is a sale agreement, we're actually selling our copper concentrates to El Teniente through a tolling agreement, and they get to qualify our production as their own. So we're currently around 8% of the production of the El Teniente complex comes from the reprocessing of our tailings. So we're significant to them. And we pay them a royalty, as you know, and as you've seen from the financial statements, in which we're basically sharing a portion of the business with them. Depending on where copper prices are, you could basically say 50% of the business is theirs through that royalty. So they're getting the production, they're getting a royalty, they're getting the repositioning of their old historical tailings into their new tailings deposit, and it works well. And they have a world-class operator in us doing that work for them.
Excellent. So, Aurora, did the recent Trump tariffs on copper impact Amerigo at all?
No, they didn't, and I wasn't expecting that they would. First of all, Amerigo we sell all of our copper concentrate to El Teniente in Chile. So even if a tariff had been implemented, we wouldn't have been affected by it because our sales are done within Chile to a Chilean client. So we wouldn't have had that impact. Um, Chile provides um, copper to the U.S. in the form of cathodes, not concentrates. The concentrate is basically a black powder that still has to be refined. It has to go through a smelter or refinery process to produce a cathode. And then the cathodes need to be further processed to become what's called the semis, the copper rod, copper wire, etc. The U.S. tariffs basically exempted copper concentrates and copper cathodes. So they're only in respect of semi-finished products.
Okay. That's good to hear. Obviously, if people were following the price of the copper, probably
On the comics.
on the comics, yeah, they would have seen that it dropped by about $1 or something per pound, was it?
Yeah, yeah. It just
Yeah.
went back to reality. The comics and the LME always have a little bit of a spread, but that significant arbitrage that we saw all through 2025 was all tariff driven.
Okay. Um, Talking about tariffs and taxes and things like that, what about currency fluctuations? Do you see much between the US Canadian dollar and the Chilean peso, or doesn't it impact you too much?
The most significant impact for us would be a significant appreciation of the Chilean peso against the US dollar. To the extent that that hasn't occurred in the last 9 years, irrespective of the fact that copper prices have strengthened significantly, we're not that concerned about it. We have a good measure of what's going to be occurring with the Chilean peso. We provide our guidance on how we estimate our cash cost on an annual basis. In the first news release of the year, we say this is what we're expecting for the Chilean peso to the US dollar to be, and each percentage of change would result in X or Y, Z changes in our cash cost. So it's very measurable for us, but we've seen a lot of stability in the
Mm.
Chilean peso to the US dollar in the last 8, 9 years.
Yeah. Okay. So I did a little bit of sort of back of the envelope math here, and you can correct me if I have it wrong, but approximately 390,000 pounds of moly at about $20 per pound is about $7.8 million or so. Is that sort of in the ballpark? Do I have it more or less correct?
Yeah, that would be the gross amount. There's always a roasting charge that has to be taken. So when you look at our moly revenue, it's net of that roasting charge. The roasting charge is essentially the cost of processing that moly into a moly concentrate.
Okay, so for the benefit of myself and our viewers, can you maybe just give us a high-level overview of what moly actually is?
Yeah. In our case at NBC, moly is a byproduct. What it means is that it is present in the concentrates that we are recovering from in our process. Um, um, it is important when moly prices are robust. In this case, they have been strong but not super high for the last 3.5 years or so. So that basically provides us two things depending on how you want to look at it. If you look at our statement, our US IFRS or our IFRS statement of operations, we report moly as a revenue and also as a cost. But in the non-IFRS metric called cash cost, which is essentially a way of saying what is your cost of producing our copper concentrate per pound, all byproducts are considered a credit to the cash cost. So don't confuse them. It's just two different lenses of seeing the same information, but it ends up being a significant contributor to the benefit and the health per business. Moly, we will never run our business in order to produce more moly, even if moly prices were to go to $30 per pound, as they do from time to time. We run our business to maximize our copper production and margin, but we are very aware that having an efficient moly operation is also a significant contributor to the financial margin of the business. Moly prices are not as volatile as copper prices. They tend to stick around in a close range for a longer period of time. And then when there's a significant disruption in the supply market, they peak up. They usually pick up from $20 per pound to $30 per pound for a period of 6-8 weeks, and then they come back to that level. So there's not much more that we can say. We've obviously have a dedicated team within the operation ensuring that the moly recoveries are up to par, that we are using the right levels of reagents, etc., to have an efficient operation. But it is ancillary to our main focus.
Okay. So during the past quarter, and I know you don't really like me specifically looking at quarters, but we saw a nice increase in the copper price during the quarter. Sort of at a macro level, if you had to take out your crystal ball, where do you kind of see copper going since we're already halfway through Q3 now?
Well, let's look at what I think for the year. I think we're going to be on a yearly basis approaching at least a 440 average price for the year. We're at 430 average price for the year right now. I think that the second half of the year will be significant. A lot of distraction and a lot of noise occurred during the first quarter associated with the tariffs. And even if the tariffs were specifically affecting the comics market, they had also an effect on the LME trading view. When I speak about what I think will happen with copper, I think of fundamentals, not of market noise. And the fundamentals are that everybody's using more copper. The source of copper, traditional are construction, infrastructure, electrification, and then the new surge of demand was expected to come from green technologies, solar, wind, electric vehicles, and then no one had thought about AI, and then AI is really causing a significant demand for infrastructure, for servers, for
Mm.
air conditioning, to cool the server rooms, etc. It's just being driven substantially from many areas within our developed view of the world that are emerging and becoming more important. But there's also another sector of the world, India, for example, that is following the tracks of China. So, what drove the significant evolution in the copper price history 20 years ago, almost to the date in which Amerigo bought NBC, was the China factor.
Mm.
China modernized itself, and
Mm.
within that demand surge of copper from the Chinese economy, copper prices went from 80 cents per pound to $4 or $3 per pound.
mm,
That's significant.
yeah,
They more than quadrupled.
mm,
And India has the same amount of people than China does. And India has a significantly lower installed copper capacity right now than China had 20 years ago. So wherever you look at it, Rudy, I think that the demand for copper is going to be very, very robust for decades to come.
mm,
And at the same time, producing that copper is becoming more difficult. You're seeing it even within our legacy asset, El Teniente, which has been in operation for more than 100 years. Where is that new copper coming from?
mm,
From deeper areas of the mine. And that's occurring uh, everywhere in the world. The big mines have to be, the big underground copper mines are going deeper and deeper to extract that ore, and grades are also changing. Grade is the amount of copper contained within the rock.
mm,
We're getting lower and lower grades. So you have a duality of forces. You have a growing demand and constrained supply.
mm.
With that continuation of either growth or constraint prolonging itself in the mid and long term. So I think that fundamentally copper prices will remain strong and probably are lower than they should be right now to incentivize, definitely lower than they should be right now to incentivize further production growth.
Awesome. So much like my comment earlier about telling our audience to always strive for 15% per year so they can double their investments every 5 years, they'd probably get bored with me saying the same thing over and over. But in this particular case, I'm going to repeat this one again because your current ratio is, about 3 to 1 or so. And I always tell people when they look at the financials to make sure that the company has the ability, for instance, in your case, to sustain their dividends and not only just make a profit and generate free cash flow and all that kind of good stuff, but you actually have a very unique and very specific strategy, which you call your capital return strategy. So how about you walk us through that for a couple of minutes?
Sure. So our capital return strategy was basically built with the objective of providing a, a base return to shareholders through a quarterly dividend that could be sustained through the short-term cyclicality that is present in the copper sector. So we didn't want to set up a dividend that was low enough that it wouldn't be attractive or that wasn't pushing us to ensure that we were incentivized to keep that dividend, but also not high enough that we would have to retract it or reduce it or put it on hold should something occur to the copper price from one quarter to the next, particularly considering what I told you before, which is our settlement cycle, which provides us with 3 months of copper price exposure. So we set up a dividend at 3 cents Canadian per quarter, which we know is sustainable. We started at 2 for one quarter, and then we increased it to 3, and we know that that dividend is quite safe, irrespective of the cyclicality that we have seen in the last 4 years on a quarter-on-quarter basis, irrespective of the fact that, for example, 2 years ago, there was a significant a climatic event in Chile where we had some flooding in our operation, and it had an impact on our production. It didn't matter. That dividend was safe, and we continued to pay it. So if you have that safe, sustained dividend, you may be leaving a lot of cash behind in your balance sheet if you have a period of, for example, copper price appreciation. So we said, okay, we need to have additional tools to return that capital to shareholders beyond what we consider to be our target cash balance, which is $25 million. So that's what we aim for. $25 million gives us working capital. It provides protection for two dividends ahead of us so that we don't have to worry about where am I going to be paying the Q3 and the Q4 dividend. Those are already considered within that margin, etc. So the other two tools that we have in the capital return strategy are share buybacks and a performance dividend. Why share buybacks? Because we believe that our share price is a good investment, that they're not reflecting their full value, and that if we have the ability of retiring shares from time to time, we should do so. And we've been doing that. And it changes and it varies. And we are looking at the short-term copper outlook, and we're looking at our timing of corporate events. For example, right now we're focused on being able to reduce that debt. Um, and then the performance dividend is essentially, Q2 2024, a great example. We had a big surge in copper prices. It allowed us to end up having $5 million more in the balance sheet than we needed to have. Off it goes. Performance dividend to the shareholders. It was paid in the amount of 4 cents Canadian. Great return
Hmm.
immediately.
Awesome. It's a great strategy. I like the variable component of the dividend anyway, just in general, because obviously we cannot always predict where the market is going, and too many companies are trying to cling to their high dividend, which sometimes is not very sustainable for too long a period of time.
Mhm.
I have a couple of questions that came in from audience as well. One of them was about the copper tariff. You talked about that already. Um, I have a question here that says risks to monitor include the copper price dropping below $3.50, obviously per pound, and tailings depletion. Uh, the copper price we obviously cannot really control, but I think in terms of your macro statement from a few minutes ago, we kind of expect it to at least remain steady at around 430, 440 for the near term. That's probably a fair comment, right?
Yeah, I would say on average, right? I think that on a floor price basis, I don't expect copper prices to be below $4 per pound for any sustained period of time.
Okay. I have a question here from one of our viewers. Venki asks, with only one mine, how are you managing risk?
That's a good question. And the counterpart to that is what is the risk associated with the underlying asset that we're working with? And it's a very low risk. And you just saw it now.
Mm,
I mean, I think that the incident that we were discussing earlier speaks to the fact of how important that asset is to the Chilean economy, how quick it was able to recover from a significant event, perhaps its worst event in 35 years, and it was back in production in 6 days.
yeah,
So that I think basically
sort of
answers
addresses
the
that.
question.
Yeah, that plus probably the information that you shared with us about the agreement, which you can refer to as the life of the mine, right? So
Mhm.
it's already sort of a longer term type of outlook for investors. Uh, Someone asked a question asking about how do the CEOs, and I think the reference here is to the to a video I made before, which included a high-level sort of review of 10 companies, including Amerigo. How do the CEOs in copper, oil, etc., see the energy future? Are you impacted at all, or does I know you explained quite eloquently how the tailings are actually transported via gravity, but are you exposed to energy fluctuations or
No, we are not exposed right now, and not for the next 15 years. We negotiated a long-term supply agreement with for the full requirement of energy for MVC. It ends in 2037. It's all green energy. It's all renewable energy that is being supplied. If you look at our website, we have our green certificates confirming that all of the energy that we use is renewable energy. And from a cost perspective, they are locked in. Our tariff is locked in. It's only subject to US CPI adjustments on an annual basis. We are also subject to what's called pass-through charges, which in Chile are charges charged by the central power grid to big industrial consumers, essentially to maintain the infrastructure in top condition in Chile. So that's a charge that changes from year to year, but our core tariff is safe, it's green, and it is basically only subject to US CPI adjustments from now until 2037. We have a great rate. We disclose all of our cost per megawatt hour on our quarterly MD&A. And this has a historical reason. There was an energy crisis in Chile almost 20 years ago where energy prices were very, very high. It had a significant impact in the country's economy, and everybody basically got together and Chile resolved this problem in a great way by investing significantly in energy infrastructure.
Awesome. So, Aurora, you've been very generous with your time, and I appreciate it sincerely. If people have questions, obviously I can add a link to Amerigo's resources website to the description below the video. But if they have questions, is that the best way to get a hold of someone at Amerigo
The
through
best
the
way of
website?
getting, yeah, well, I think we have a request information box there, but the best way of getting in touch is by writing to me. My email is ad@amerigoresources.com. And on the bottom of all of our news releases, which they're all available on our website, there's the contact information for myself, phone number, email, and for our investor relations liaison. His name is Graham Farrell. So we work together to ensure that all questions are answered in a prompt way.
Awesome. A very quick closing comment from me. Amerigo is a compelling investment for those who are bullish on copper prices and seeking income through dividends. Given its strong cash flow, consistent profitability, and attractive yield, its unique tailings processing model and low debt levels enhance its appeal. On that note, Aurora, I would like to sincerely thank you for your time spent with me. And if you have anything in addition that you want to add before we say goodbye, we can wrap it up and end the discussion here.
Rudy, thank you for having me. I would just invite people to take a look at our website. It is very informational. It's not a boring technical website, and specifically our investor presentation, which can be found on every page of the website, has some interesting information on how our capital return strategy has worked in the last 4 years.
Well, there you go, folks. Straight from the CEO, all about the copper factory. Good luck and best of success. And Aurora, thank you for everything that you're doing. And thanks for running such a good shop.
Thank you, Rudy.
Okay, goodbye.